Did you know that when Scream first hit theaters in 1996, it redefined the slasher genre by turning horror on its head? With its self-aware humor, clever twists, and a meta-commentary on horror movies, it became an instant classic that resonated with audiences and critics alike. Fast forward to the more recent entries, and the franchise has taken a wild ride. So, before we break this epic franchise down, a real quick ask that if you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, please take a second to hit that subscribe button now. It's one small click for you, but a huge deal for us. Now, let's get into what went wrong and what went right with the Scream franchise. Reason number 1, the genius of the original, a new era of self-aware horror. The original Scream in 1996 was a revelation. At a time when slasher films were being churned out with little regard for originality, director Wes Craven and screenwriter Kevin Williamson injected new life into the genre. They introduced a movie that was as smart as it was scary, a film that simultaneously celebrated and satirized the tropes of horror. What made Scream so groundbreaking wasn't just its clever plot twists or its gory kills, it was the self-awareness. The film's characters were acutely aware of horror movie cliches, and this meta-commentary allowed audiences to laugh at the absurdity of it all while still feeling the tension of impending doom. Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, emerged not only as a final girl, but as a symbol of resilience in the face of relentless terror. Meanwhile, the chemistry between the survivors and the unpredictability of Ghostface, the enigmatic killer, set a standard for horror that few films have matched ever since. The film balanced genuine scares with moments of dark humor and biting satire, transforming a familiar genre into something refreshingly original. It wasn't afraid to poke fun at itself or to challenge audience expectations. That blend of suspense, wit, and a healthy dose of irony made Scream a cultural touchstone, a film that could be both a loving homage to and clever critique of horror convention. It was this bold spirit that made the original unforgettable and set the stage for every sequel. But as the series went on, the spirit wasn't just diluted, it went missing. And that's when the creative decline began. Reason number 2, creative downfall. After the initial triumph of Scream, the franchise seemed poised to ride that wave of innovation and wit for years to come. However, as sequels rolled out, a troubling pattern emerged, a slow but steady creative decline that left fans and critics asking, what happened to the original? Scream 2, 1997, managed to recapture much of the original's charm, though its killer reveal was arguably the weakest in the series. Yet it still seemed like a worthy successor, maintaining the self-aware humor and unpredictable twists that audiences loved. The film's balance of satire and genuine suspense kept the spirit of the original alive, even as it expanded on the mythology. But by Scream 3 in 2000, the franchise took a noticeable downturn, with less involvement from Wes Craven and a new set of writers. The film's tone shifted dramatically. The witty commentary and meta-references that made the first film so influential were largely absent. Instead, Scream 3 leaned too heavily on crude humor and failed to provide the fresh scares that had defined its predecessor. It felt as though the film was simply ticking boxes, a series of predictable set pieces without the razor-sharp self-awareness that once set the series apart. This creative decline was compounded by an over-reliance on familiar tropes. The innovative blend of horror and comedy that had made the original a landmark was slowly replaced by formulaic storytelling. Instead of subverting expectations, the sequels became trapped in a cycle of rehashed plot devices. As the franchise struggled to maintain its identity, the very elements that once made Scream so revolutionary became stale and uninspired. The fallout from this creative decline wasn't limited to the films themselves. It also led to a growing sense of franchise fatigue among audiences. When every new installment seems like a retread of what came before, even the most die-hard fans begin to lose interest. And it's precisely this issue of creative stagnation that set the stage for a bold attempt to reinvigorate the series in recent years. Reason number 3, the Treadmill of Tropes. One of the biggest criticisms leveled at the Scream franchise after its early successes is its relentless recycling of the same tropes. If you've watched multiple entries in the series, you start to feel like you're on a treadmill, a never-ending loop of similar plot beats and predictable twists. The original cleverly subverted horror conventions, keeping audiences on their toes, but as the sequels began to roll out, that spark of originality seemed to fade. By Scream 3, the franchise felt like it was running on autopilot. The pattern became predictable. A new killer emerges, the survivors play detective, and a twist is revealed. But with each installment, these twists became easier to see coming, draining the tension that once made Scream gripping. The constant repetition extended beyond just the killer's identity. The characters themselves became formulaic, with the archetypal final girl and the wisecracking sidekick showing up in nearly every installment. Even the recurring theme of survival through self-awareness kinda lost its bite when it was overused. As the films repeated the same narrative cycles, audiences grew weary of the sameness. The once refreshing meta-commentary grew into a tired gimmick, one that no longer offered any new insights into the horror genre. This formula fatigue made Scream feel like a relic of the past, stuck repeating its own cliches. Audiences wanted innovation, but got more of the same, leading to franchise fatigue and dwindling interest. Reason number 4, the loss of the original creative vision. One of the hallmarks of the first Scream was its self-aware, revolutionary approach to the slasher genre. With its clever deconstruction of horror tropes and its razor-sharp meta-commentary, it set a new standard for what horror movies could even be. As the series progressed, however, that original creative vision began to slip. A major turning point was the gradual absence of Wes Craven's unique sensibility. Craven's fingerprints were all over the first film, guiding its balance of suspense and satire. But as he stepped back from the franchise, the film lost that distinctive edge. Subsequent entries struggled to capture the self-referential humor and keen insight that made the original a standout. The writers leaned way too heavily on established conventions rather than daring to subvert them, and in doing so, the franchise lost the bold spirit that once set it apart. This shift is perhaps best exemplified by the diminishing complexity of the killer reveals. In the original, every twist was a cleverly executed surprise that left audiences reeling. Later films, however, started to feel like they were just ticking off a checklist of horror cliches. Even the meta-references, which initially served to both entertain and critique the genre, became predictable and overused. Furthermore, the change in tone wasn't just about the killers, it affected the entire narrative. The original films had a certain raw energy, a willingness to push boundaries, and made the most gruesome moments feel relevant. As the series continued, the creative risks diminished. Instead of offering fresh, provocative takes on horror, the sequels often settled for safe, familiar beats. The loss of that creative vision ultimately meant missed opportunities to explore new themes and fresh narratives. Instead of breaking new ground, the franchise became a series of rehashes, each installment a shadow of the bold, inventive spirit that launched it all. And in a genre that thrives on innovation, that was a critical mistake. Reason number 5, the reboot. After years of diminishing returns, the franchise needed a fresh start, and in 2022, it got one. The Scream reboot aimed to bring the series back to its roots, recapturing the horror that made the original a cultural phenomenon. Recognizing that the later sequels had lost their way, the new creative team set out to strip back the layers of convoluted plot and repetition, focusing instead on the self-aware meta-humor that defined the 1996 classic. The 2022 reboot reintroduced iconic characters like Sidney Prescott, along with a fresh cast of new victims and a reimagined Ghostface. Instead of relying on tired tropes, the film embraced a more streamlined narrative that balanced genuine scares with clever commentary on the evolution of the horror genre itself. This return to form wasn't about simply rehashing old ideas, it was about blending nostalgia with modern sensibilities. The filmmakers updated the story to address contemporary issues, social media's influence, changing audience expectations, and the blurred lines between horror and reality, while still paying homage to the original's groundbreaking approach. In doing so, the reboot managed to evoke the same sense of excitement and tension that made the original a hit, while also offering something new for today's viewers. Reason number 6, new talent and a modern perspective. Alongside the return to the roots of the franchise, the reboot introduced a new generation of talent that brought fresh energy to the series. While the legacy characters provided a familiar anchor, the film did not shy away from pushing the boundaries with its new cast. Emerging stars injected vitality into the story, offering performances that balanced vulnerability, wit, and resilience. This modern perspective is evident not only in the performances, but also in the themes the reboot tackled. Where the earlier films were rooted in a postmodern critique of horror tropes, the new installment expanded on that commentary to reflect the contemporary landscape, addressing issues like online identity, the impact of social media, and the evolving nature of fandom. The film's narrative explored how horror has changed in a digital age, where the lines between reality and spectacle are increasingly blurred. The creative team also took advantage of cutting-edge technology to enhance the storytelling. Visual effects and practical stunts were used judiciously, complementing rather than overwhelming the narrative. The result was a film that seemed both nostalgic and innovative, a delicate blend of homage and reinvention that resonated with both longtime fans and new audiences alike. Moreover, the fresh dialogue and updated character arcs added a layer of relatability that the later sequels sorely lacked. The new cast members weren't merely props to fill screen time. They had fully realized motivations and personal struggles that echoed the thematic core of the original. This infusion of new talent and ideas signaled a willingness to evolve while respecting the franchise's legacy, a balancing act that, for a moment, gave hope that the series could reclaim its former glory. Reason number 7. Setbacks and controversies. Even as the reboot breathed new life into the Scream universe, recent setbacks have cast a shadow over its future. One of the most significant challenges has been the controversy surrounding key cast members on social media. When actress Melissa Barrera was embroiled in a scandal over inflammatory posts, her sudden departure sent shockwaves through the production team and left fans anxious about the franchise's direction. This fallout wasn't an isolated incident either. It represented a broader issue of maintaining continuity and trust in a franchise with such a passionate fanbase. The departure of a beloved actor not only disrupts ongoing storylines, but also creates uncertainty about future installments. With key players leaving and the creative team facing internal pressures, the vision for where Scream should go next was murky. Additionally, there was the changing landscape of the film industry, which further complicated matters. With streaming platforms on the rise and audiences' tastes shifting toward more nuanced storytelling, there was mounting pressure on studios to innovate rather than rely on tired formulas. While the reboot managed to recapture some of the original's meta charm, it also set really high expectations for what should follow, expectations that now hang in the balance. The production of subsequent sequels, already a challenge given the franchise's past, is now fraught with uncertainty. Behind-the-scenes disputes over creative direction, coupled with external pressures from critics and fans, suggest that the franchise is at a crossroads. Will the next chapter build on the successes of the reboot, or will the lingering controversies and internal strife derail the momentum entirely? The Scream franchise is a study in extremes, an extraordinary blend of innovation and decline, triumph and missteps. From its groundbreaking debut in 1996, which revolutionized the horror genre with its self-aware humor and satirical edge, to the creative decline of later sequels that recycled tired tropes, the series has seen it all. Yet the recent reboot managed to recapture the original's daring spirit, updating the formula for a new generation while paying homage to its roots. The resurgence breathed new life into the franchise, but recent setbacks reveal the challenges of keeping Scream relevant in today's evolving cinematic landscape. Is Scream poised for another revival, or will it fall back into the same cycle of repetition? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the legacy of Ghostface isn't ready to fade just yet. But hey, that's just our take. What do you think went wrong with the Scream franchise, and what could be learned from its resurgence? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's biggest missteps and triumphs. This video was made by movie fans for movie fans.